on the, okay. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Keith Jenkins, and I'm the CEO of iambassador, and we will be talking about digital and influencer marketing trends and developments. There's been a lot of different trends and a lot of different developments, and we're trying to cover them through a couple of case studies and just hopefully inspire you and also, you know, educate as well. There's a little bit of education in there about how this whole new world of digital marketing is evolving. So a little bit about myself first. So I'm the CEO of iambassador, and we are basically a global network of travel influencers, and we work with tourism boards and with companies around the world to create marketing campaigns and content projects. These are some of our clients, and yes, so we create campaigns, we create content, and we also do quite a bit of education in terms of seminars and workshops, and we also have our Social Travel Summit, which is a gathering of industry and top travel influencers from around the world. And the last summit was in Inverness, Scotland, just a couple of weeks ago. And one of the big components from that summit is when it's called the Think Tank, where we get 30 influencers and industry people to sit in a room together for an hour and a half. We give them 3 issues to talk about, discuss, and come up with recommendations. And all of that, all those discussions are then summarized in a report called the STS Think Tank Report. And Peter Jordan here from Topography will be presenting the report at the end as the last part of our presentation today. So, okay. Talking about digital marketing projects and campaigns, I'd like to present a few different campaigns that we've done in the past years. And one of them is always about multi-platform strategies. So creating content is one thing, but getting the content out through different channels is always one of our top priorities when we're organizing a campaign. So this is one example of a campaign we did with Visit Britain not so long ago, called the British Countryside. And it was basically to get visitors who are coming to the UK to not only see London and all of the famous destinations in the UK, but to get them to explore more of the countryside as well. And I think, you know, this idea came up because, you know, there are a lot of tourists in London, and, you know, you want to try and disperse them and get them to see more of the countryside, more of the country. So we brought in influencers from 3 influencers from the US, because this campaign was targeted at the US market. One influencer was luxury, another one was adventure, another one was food. So they covered 3 different niches and 3 different areas of interest, and they just explored the countryside of the UK. And the content that was then created was not only shared on the blogs and on their social platforms of the influencers, but also on the Visit Britain site, which they created a micro site, which basically captured all the content that was created by the influencers. And so people could actually just go to the website and look up all these different countryside experiences which these bloggers experienced. My Mauritius is another campaign that we've done 2 times now, and it's also another example of creating content for multiple channels and also multiple multimedia content. So we've got videographers, Instagrammers, bloggers, videographers, photographers, all in one group, and we brought them to Mauritius, and they're all from different parts of the world. And we bring them to Mauritius, and once they arrive in Mauritius, they basically fan out across the island on individual itineraries. Each itinerary is tailored to the interest of the particular influencer. So if you're interested in luxury, you'll be staying in the 5-star hotels, eating in the great restaurants. Then there's also, we've worked also with a kite surfer blogger because Mauritius is a great place for kite surfing. So we brought in the kite surfer blogger. And then we have a videographer who's traversing the whole island and visiting all these different influencers and filming all their different experiences. And then we put all of that into a video to tie up the whole campaign. And in Austria, it's also a campaign that we did quite recently, and this one was also about bringing bloggers to Austria. The thing that makes this campaign special is that it highlights both the winter and the summer attractions in Austria. And so we brought in the same group of bloggers first in the summer to experience all the hiking and the food and the wines, etc. And obviously, there's a lot of culture and history as well. And then brought back the same group in the winter to Austria. And then they got to experience all the different winter activities. Obviously, you see the destination in a completely different light compared with the summer and the winter. This is a campaign that we did actually a few weeks ago. And it was to highlight all the street art in Germany. And this was actually our first campaign that basically was targeted at Instagram and Snapchat. So we had a group of Instagrammers and Snapchatters traveling across Germany in a van. It wasn't a van, right? Yeah. And meeting up with local artists, meeting up with local street artists, and looking at their work, and also getting the stories behind the work and highlighting all of this through Instagram and Snapchat. Okay, so I'll pass the mic now over to Nicholas.
Thank you. Hello. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Nicholas Montemaggi, and I'm the Director of Marketing for iambassador, so I work together with Keith. And from my experience, I worked for 5 years for a DMO, so I was sitting at the other side of the table, and from a DMO you heard before about, it's called Emilia-Romagna. So I will be talking to you now really quickly about the importance of thinking long-term as well when working online, and especially also with online influencers. Because as you can see here, also the guy hugging the cat, you're building like a relationship. I wanted just to show you a couple really of examples of case studies that we did, and then in the session afterwards that comes after this, we will highlight more the case study of the Eurofood trip, and you will see also for the first time the video that came out of that campaign. In Lombardia 365 is a campaign that we did with the Lombardia region and Explora in Italy, and it's basically the first time a campaign of a 1 year lasting campaign. So basically what they ask us to do and what we are working together with them is to send over influencer every month. They host a trip in the region of Lombardy. And what they do with the content then is then create 365 stories that all during the year that talk about the destination. And of course, the bloggers are creating the stories on their own channels and platforms, but they are broadcasted as well on the Tourist Board's website. Blogville, many of you maybe know me as well as the former Mr. Blogville. So this is a campaign we highlighted a lot in the past years here at WTM as well, and I won't bother you again about it. But just in short, it basically, since 2012, the region of Emilia-Romagna is providing a base, an apartment for influencers from all over the world. They come there and enjoy the destination like a local, and then of course, share all their experiences with their fans, followers, and readers. What I wanted to highlight here is that, as you see, the project started in 2012 with one destination. In 2013, it was a natural evolvement where the Republic of San Marino, the smallest republic of the world, which is bordering with the Emilia-Romagna region, joined as well and started to participate in the project. And then in 2014, the project opened as well to the neighboring region of Lombardy. There are news for next year where other destinations within Europe are interested in taking over the project as well. A slide that, for those of you who have been here before, have seen also in the presentation of Gemma, and what Eva highlighted as well from Visit Finland is that this now is the time to cooperate and not compete together. So we are now working with different DMOs and clients to bringing campaigns, joint campaigns together. One that we did recently in August is the Cultural Roots of Europe, where basically together with the Cultural Roots of Europe and the Council of Europe, we brought along 5 bloggers from the markets that these routes were interested in, and they went along on a trip to discover the Transromanica and the Danube Road. And what came out was literally a trip without borders, so highlighting even for the long-haul markets like China or North America, for example, and even South America, that you can, discover more destinations at once when coming and visiting Europe. Because the thing is, tourists and travelers, they don't think with borders. They don't know, oh, here I'm in Italy and here I'm in Austria, or even between the regions and the cities. They just want an experience, and to experience, in this case, Europe. The Eurofood trip, as we said, Gemma, before, and I said now, we will highlight it more in the session afterwards, so I would be happy to see you again there. And it's basically the first time where 2 competing destinations started to work together. And apart from organizing the blogger trip, which was a bit the trigger, it was literally the collaboration of the local industries also to create a new tourism product that could be available in the future for international travelers to experience both destinations. Yeah, that was really quick from my side, and we will see us later in 1 hour.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Nick. I'm Melvin. I'm the founder of Travel Dudes. Travel Dudes is your social travel platform, but we are also the media partner of iambassador. So, when the bloggers are out there and running those campaigns, we are sometimes part of it. Otherwise, we give the amplification. We promote this kind of content also through our social channels. But we also have our our team of content creators, and we run also our own little campaigns. And there's this campaign we did with Ljubljana, with the city of Ljubljana in Slovenia. And for me, that was we promoted through our different channels, and we have this reach of 4 million people per month outside when you take the Twitter, the Instagram, and the Facebook, and our own website. Special about this campaign, which I feel really proud about, is how it started. First, I had in mind we go there with 1 blogger or with 1 video guy, but actually they wanted to have 3 people from us. So if you think back, 15 years ago, the traditional kind of media worked. You sent someone into a destination, he was just taking care of writing. Then you had someone just taking care of photography. Then the bloggers came, the influencers, and suddenly you had a blogger there, and he was doing everything at once. And it was awesome, but it was also very, very busy for us. And still, these campaigns, we work a lot from the morning till to the end. Now we had the opportunity to have 3 people in the destination, and the results, it was just so incredible to see. We had an amazing time, but it was again very, very busy. We had 1 guy just focusing on travel writing and producing a lot of articles. In the end, we had over 28 articles, including the partners. We had Greg doing the videos, so he produced 6 videos. I was coordinating the whole campaign to give it a really good flow. What was very special there, that it was custom built, so it was up to us. We got the message from Ljubljana Tourism. We have all heard already Overtourism. You will hear that in the report next, a bit short in a while. Cities like Amsterdam, they don't want any tourism anymore. They can't handle it anymore. So what do? They have to find new strategies. So Ljubljana contacted us, explained their issues. So we were there to show also the countryside. For that, it was very important that we had our own itinerary and that we can be part of that success. The views, well, these are the results. And for example, and that was a campaign of 1 week. So we had over 500,000 views. Those are not opportunities to see. These are actual views. So it was a huge success. What I think made it very, very important for me, because the views and the exposure is very good, but the Ljubljana Tourism Board understood how to make use of our content. So when you go onto their channels now, they still share it on Twitter, on Facebook, through their newsletters, and also towards the industry and their partners. So there were a couple of titles from the videos Greg produced. Maybe we can just show you a couple of seconds of this video, because it gives you an impression also of the quality of the content we produce. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, cool. So you see, we showed a bit of the countryside, but also our mission was to show that the city got an amazing food scene. Maybe as a tip for the guys running tourism offices here, if you have a typical press trip and you want to show that your destination is actually also in the food scene, it's not too expensive to get like really good meals outside. If you invite bloggers or journalists and you invite them to an awesome dinner and you have a really good time and everyone goes home after that, we are not really able to show the budget of that. We had our own food budget and suddenly we were able to see how much we spend for that food, and we were able to promote it in a very natural way towards our readers and audience. What is also always very, very nice and good to have is the direct feedback of our audience, so that it's not just like those fancy, good-looking numbers of 500,000 of views and things like that, but people really going back to us, onto the comments, and interacting with us on all those different platforms who say, oh, wow, I didn't knew about that and how cool it is. You can do the stand-up paddle boarding in the city of Ljubljana, and 20 minutes are you already on the countryside paddling and kayaking. And that's just like about the values. I think like what we created, it was like really high quality content. Everyone was able to focus only on them. And by going this step backwards in media, I think we went in influencer marketing, especially in blogging, a huge step into the future. And yeah, obviously the tourism board was also very happy with that, and that's like what I said already. They were happy with the natural organic exposure, but especially with the content we created for them, which is a huge value to them, which they will use for the next couple of months and yeah, for their own channels. And now I pass it on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Melvin, and thank you, Nick. So I would like to introduce you to Peter Jordan, who's the Senior Tourism Analyst at Toposophy. And Peter played a very important role for us this year at a Social Travel Summit because he moderated the think tank, which, as I said before, was a 1.5-hour session where we basically locked up 30 people to discuss 3 issues which we gave them beforehand and to come up with recommendations on these issues. And from all the discussions at the think tank, Peter Jordan has written the report, which can be downloaded from thesocialtravelsummit.com. And he will now present to you the report. Peter?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Keith. Hi there, everybody. Great to be with you this afternoon, and thank you for hanging on in there after what has been a very busy week for us all. I just wanted to share with you some of my observations because I'm quite new to this area. I've worked for quite a few years now in tourism industry analysts. I've worked in international organizations in tourism, and now I work with this brilliant company, Toposophy. So I look at tourism trends a lot, but it's actually quite new to me, this whole area of travel blogging, increasingly travel influencing, because there's all sorts of different media involved. And it's been quite a learning experience, and I must say a really positive one. Just to give you a little bit more information about myself, as I said, I'm a tourism industry analyst. I am a millennial, and I specialize a lot in looking at millennials, their travel trends, and so obviously this area is a very interesting one for me. I work with Toposophy, which I'll just tell you a little bit more about in a second. And yeah, I was really excited to be part of this think tank this year. I also have my own blog, but I can promise you it's not anywhere near as flashy as the blogs that these guys here have, or many of you have in the audience. But yeah, I also write often about tourism industry trends and millennials. Toposophy, we're a 360-degree integrated destination marketing agency. That means that we provide all of the services and more that a tourism board or a travel brand could possibly need. It's quite a hybrid model for a consultancy, but we have a huge amount of digital backup behind us. We work especially in these areas, strategy and research, marketing and branding, so we can cover the whole range of different areas, as I said, that a tourism board could need. And I'm pleased to tell you also that we have a partnership with a great agency here in London called Umi Digital. But we're backed up, and this is not very common in this business, by 150 staff working with us in Athens. Very, very talented people. And that means that we can provide all of these type of services for DMOs, travel brands, and a whole different range. There's a lot that we can do. So I'm joined also here by Manuel Espasarros, who's the managing director, who's we'd be very happy to talk to you later. Anyway, let me carry on and explain to you why we were so interested to get involved in something like this. Well, first of all, we really are convinced about the power of influencer marketing in travel. And we know that this goes way beyond the traditional idea of a press trip and a kind of new type of journalist. We've really opened our eyes, and we really understand the power of what travel influencers can really do. But we also understand, of course, the current challenges that DMOs are going through. And I know that those of you in the room from DMOs, wherever you are in the world, often find yourself under political pressure, the constraints of budgets, and of course also this requirement to shift more and more and solving problems in management and moving away from things like marketing. And that's something that we really do understand. So there are a lot of think tanks that happen, and there's a lot of knowledge that comes out of different events. But why does this particular think tank matter, especially in the world of travel influencing? Well, first of all, we have a lot of combined knowledge in the room. I really do believe, and I'm sure Keith will attest to this, we are dealing with some very, very experienced travel influencers. These are people who've been working in it for quite a while and have built up quite a lot of experience. It's also really nice that we're working with DMOs there who also have experience. Again, it's quite a new area. It's a bit of a brave new world in tourism marketing. So to have DMOs that already have built up a lot of experience really does help. And what we really hope, and again, this is something I hope that you can take with you, the report that I've written is free download to take with you, is that we really hope that this can provide you, everybody outside of who wasn't able to make it to this event, with experience and some really practical recommendations. It's also important because in the room we had some very, very creative people. And I've really seen over the years how travel influencers, and I really do appreciate this, they're very creative and very flexible and dynamic people. We have to, you know, I really do believe this, and I've been quite amazed and stunned by the wonderful creativity and the wonderful ideas that flow when you bring travel influencers together. And, you know, we are dealing with people whose job it is to create and distribute content, and they think they do it very well. Okay. And the nice thing, of course, as I said, we've got creative DMOs there as well. And this is a subject which I think is interesting. This is a takeaway for me that came out of this think tank when we had it in Inverness in September, was that when you hear the issues that people are talking about in this think tank, on the travel influencers and the DMOs, it's really interesting because it points to so many issues that are related to destination management and marketing. It's indicating some really wider changes that are occurring in the way that tourism is marketed and managed today. And how is that managed? What's the big lesson? Well, there's an enormous shift for those who are there to manage tourism, let's say, because DMOs, destination marketing management organizations, are shifting very rapidly, some faster than others, but it's happening from being creators and managers to becoming curators of content, facilitators, making things happen, putting people in contact, and enablers, making things happen in their destination, connecting travel influencers with local business, but less and less sort of managing things and more helping things happen. That's a very important shift to take into account. So what did we do? Well, we had 30 very exclusive participants in the room. It would be wonderful to do more of this kind of thing because there were some great ideas that came out of it. We had 3 topics, 2 hours to debate them, and we've produced 1 report. And let me introduce you to these 3 topics. First of all, we really wanted to look at this question of the value of travel influencers beyond the statistics. Now, Melvin presented a lot of stats, so there's no doubt that we have a huge amount of statistics at our disposal when we are presenting a project, when we are trying to justify it, when we're talking about the impact of an influencer marketing campaign, of likes and shares, etc., etc. However, we know that there's still a lot of work to do in helping people in the industry understand the importance of what influencers can really do. Now, why are we trying to look beyond the statistic? What's wrong with that? Well, first of all, DMOs are definitely expected to justify their plans and explain their results. And those of you who are from DMOs, I know you're very familiar with this scenario. Now, as I said, of course, there's a lot of data available. However, it's also true that if you just spend your whole time trying to reach targets and tick boxes, well, you also end up restraining a lot of the creativity that can come when working with travel influencers. So you have to kind of watch that as well. It's also difficult to, it's also, we have to admit, still can be quite difficult to explain to political leaders the full extent of what travel influencers can do. They often think they're kind of a new type of journalists, or not entirely sure also what these people can really achieve. So, you know, this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to put this into words, because we have a lot of passionate people. We have people who are convinced on the DMO side, and we have people who are convinced on the travel influencer side. And my job was to try and put this into words. Now, topic 2. Now, there's an increasing need. As I said, DMOs have to justify what they do. They also don't just work alone. They have to work with local business, local people, local residents, which is also increasingly important. So there's a kind of political context. There's a money trail, and there's a decision-making trail as well behind all of this. And, of course, local business is very important. So, as I said, local businesses, big ones and small ones, are an increasingly important stakeholders. Sometimes they're paying membership fees. Sometimes, but what's certainly true is that the big political decision makers usually prefer to have business included more and more in the decision making that happens in the DMO. So yeah, and if they're members, of course, they want a say in where the money's going. So this is important for travel influencers to know, because it means they have to include local business. And when they do, when a travel influencers, when a business really does benefit in some way from a travel influencer's visit, and I'm sure the travel influencers who are here are very aware of the impact. Sometimes a local business gets in contact with them and says, "Oh, it was brilliant. We had so many customers. I know you've been experiencing this, Keith. You've had, you know, we all have stories to tell." Well, you know, that's really positive for definitely for the business, but also for the travel influencer who's looking to work elsewhere in the future. Now, topic 3. It's quite a different one and quite an interesting one that we wanted to introduce for this year. And this is using influence that has been built up. There's a lot of trust and there's a lot of influencers that travel influencers have now. But how can you use it for good? And how can you use it to tackle a problem that's even caused by tourism itself, overtourism? So let me just tell you a little bit more about that. Well, it's certainly true that DMOs are being asked to take a stronger role in local economic development. We all know that. It's also important, though, as we're seeing, to spread visits more evenly throughout the destination, around spatially, but also in terms of time, to try and avoid some of those really sharp seasonal peaks that you get in seasonality in tourism. And at the same time, on travel influencers' side, well, you know, we know that they have the trust and the loyalty, but do they use it often enough for good causes? Well, you know, we decided to take one cause in particular, one particular problem, this one of over-tourism. And I'm sure you've heard this in other forums that have cropped up in WTM. It's a subject which we look very closely at, Topography, because we know it's something of burning importance and rising importance for destinations. Certainly a problem in European cities right now. We all know the famous examples. I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to damage their brand even further. But, you know, we're really talking about an over-concentration of tourists in one place at one time. And this is really a burning issue in tourism right now. And it really is an issue, though, because if you've got too many tourists, it's just exacerbating all the problems you already have. So that's the problem that we decided to take and present with the travel influencers and look at more closely. So, as you can imagine, 30 people, 2 hours, a lot to debate. There was a huge amount of ideas that came out. What I've just tried to do for you this afternoon in a very short space of time is just bring you a quick overview of the recommendations that came out. Well, first of all, you'll be surprised to know, or not, it's communication. Well, there has to be a lot more of it, certainly. So, if you're a travel influencer, you need to be asking yourself these questions. Why am I here? Really? Why am I here? What is it you're really trying to achieve? In the short term, but also more in the long term. You know, what are your goals as an organization? What are your problems that you have? What are you trying to solve? And then especially local business, as I mentioned. How can those local businesses get more out of me? Because I can promise you, if you bring them more into the conversation, you'll definitely get a lot further. And also well-written agreements. Well, it's a professional thing to do, of course, but you know, it's really important. And you guys are professional. It's important to have things written down properly in words. And then we also need a bit more communication after visits. I'm talking press trips, blogger trips occur. You know, what was the impact? How do we record it? How do we put that into words? What content was produced? It's all really, really important. Of course, what content has been produced, because this is often a complaint that, you know, a lot of materials produced, a lot of content is there, the blogger trip happens, but then it's kind of silence. Everyone just goes home and that's it. Well, you know, there's this concept of evergreen content that's still useful from long, long after the visits occurred. Well, you know, you've paid for this stuff, guys, in the DMOs. You need to use it. And also you need to think about, of course, what can you use next time? What could be done better? Now, this is really aimed at DMOs and travel brands, of course. You need to think long term, and this is, of course, something that Nick mentioned. Firstly, because travel influencers, when they build up a lot of knowledge, for their followers, they really become a very trusted resource in what they're talking about. And then as they do so, they kind of move from being a roaming reporter, let's say, to being a brand ambassador. And that's a very powerful position to be in. Also, there's this concept of goodwill, and I've written quite a lot about this in the report, because it's really clear that if you're a DMO, your budget's running a bit low, you're in a bit of a fix, you need some content to produce, or you'd like to do something, well, you know, it's really good to have a friend in time of need. And I really seen how many friendships have built up between the travel influencers and the brands and the DMOs that are there. But of course, for all of this to work, it's very important to get the match right, to find the right travel influencer to work on your project. Now, travel influencers, going back to you, what can you do? How can you do your work better? Well, you know, you really need to take a better look and more of a broad look about where you fit in the world of destination marketing. You need to do your homework. You need to understand the priorities of the DMOs you're working with. You also need to perhaps look for more opportunities. You know, which are the emerging consumer segments? Which segments, which audiences is the DMO really trying to reach in the future? How could you grow your audience in that area? DMOs, going back to you guys. Well, building the ideal itinerary. Now, we have specialists here in helping you put together exactly the right blogger trip and how to do it. But I'm kind of talking about these extras. You know, about knowing your product. You know, this is something which perhaps we could do a little bit better. Understanding the needs of the travel influencer, definitely. But as I said, go back to local business. How can you help more and more local businesses get involved in mini forums, you know, maybe little social media workshops in some way? Because when you explain your objectives to business, I can guarantee you get a lot more return on your investment. Of course, keep up with what's going on and make sure you match what you're trying to promote with the right blogger. You know, there has to be this match, otherwise there's not really much point. It's a lot of wasted time. Of course, be prepared to be imaginative and flexible because you're working with imaginative and flexible people. And then finally, this final recommendation, when I'm talking about overtourism, well, you know, you need to make travel influencers part of your strategy for tackling seasonality and dispersal. And if you don't have one of those strategies, come and talk to us, because we're very happy to help you with it. Yeah, you need to understand the role of travel influencers here, because they're very important. They can provide inspiration with beautiful Instagram photos, etc. But crucially, they can give practical advice on how to get from A to B, which ticket you need to buy, which bus you need to catch, and they can do it in the language of whichever audience they're speaking to. They have a very practical application there. Now, you need to discuss this situation of overtourism and perhaps some of your longer-term issues in your briefing when you're communicating, as I said. But you also probably need to handle some of those crowded attractions with care. And yeah, well, again, when you're perhaps putting together a campaign, putting together a blogger trip, maybe try and do it off-season and look at some breaks when you're doing it. And also themed itineraries. They tend to take people a bit further away from the main drag. That's on overtourism. Let me tell you, so this is a free download, as I mentioned, and you can find it at the socialtravelsummit.com/think-tank. But yeah, just come and speak to us and we can give you the right link. As I said, it's a really useful resource for you. It's not just something captured from this year. I think you're going to find a lot of resources on this page, and I hope you really look forward to your feedback also on this report. Because it's got practical recommendations for all of you. And finally, to let you know that at Toposophy, we also have our own page with a whole range of insights on areas such as the sharing economy and individual market analysis and how to work better with millennials. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we're running a bit late here, but are there any questions from the crowd, from the audience, about any of the case studies or about the think tank report? Any general questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending and for coming over. And it's been a busy WTM, so I totally get it. But thank you so much for coming.